All right, you ready?
Our one listener in Croatia.
The one listener in Croatia. She's like, I'm so nervous. You should be. This is a big deal. 5, 4, 3.
Coming to you from the Poorly Painted Studios in Cumming, Georgia, this is the Chuck and Zee Show. And now, here's Chuck and Zee.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Chuck and Zee Show. Of course, I'm Chuck.
And I'm Zee.
And with us, as always, is producer Chaos.
Hooray.
How are you this evening?
Nervous. I don't know why.
Why are you so nervous tonight? The twos of people, the threes that are listening out there.
I want this to be the best show ever. It's like the best Christmas ever. You know, this is going to be the best Christmas ever. Like last year wasn't the best Christmas ever. So this year, yeah, it'll be the best. This is the best show.
Best show.
Well, now you've gone too far.
No pressure.
Now it's like on the first date when the girl's like, oh, this is going to be so great. You're like, slow down.
The expectations are too high.
Too much.
Too much pressure. Yeah. All right. Just want you guys to be happy.
Well, we are happy. Anytime the three of us get together and get to chop it up, get on the mics, talk to some cool people, I'm in a good mood. I love doing this. Do you? I think I really love doing this.
Yes.
It's
absolutely.
a lot of fun.
It's a highlight of my week.
It is mine too. Oh,
it's a good start to the week.
How do you, I can't even do it like the kids do it. Is that how they do it? Right here.
You're just like Taylor Swift.
I'm a corporate product.
Oh my! What are we going down that road? Are we?
Did I just say it? I said it out loud. I am not a corporate product. I'm not manufactured.
And we also have Ellie Belly. Ellie Belly's on the show tonight.
Eleanor Rigby.
Eleanor Rigby.
Here to annoy us.
Yeah. So what do we have going on today, Sharon?
Yeah, Sharon. Could you introduce our guest tonight? Because I'm in a mood. I could just jabber forever.
Okay. Yes, I am very happy to introduce our guests tonight because they are the authors of the book series Mimi and Moto, and they have motorcycle adventure books for children, which I love. It's cool to know that you can introduce children to what is considered an adult kind of activity, but it's something that they can get used to and think of as positive, and it doesn't always have to be like the stereotypical biker kind of thought. And anyway, the authors that we have are Nancy Gerloff and Mark Augustyn. Did I say it correctly?
I think you said it right.
Yeah, it's good. It was good. You did good.
Yay!
Welcome to the show, guys.
Welcome. Thanks for having us.
No, we're super excited to have you guys on. I think the books are a great idea. And kids love motorcycles. Anytime you roll by boys, girls, whatever, just a gaggle of kids, they always just immediately are like, oh my God, I always brought every time. And you either get one of two reactions. You either get the one that cries and runs off, or you get the one that's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, that dude's going to ride a motorcycle. It's a great idea, the book series.
Thank you.
Yeah. Where did you guys kind of come up from with the idea to do a book series surrounded about motorcycles and kids and the monkey angle? Where did all that come from?
Ladies first. Nancy, start. Yeah, always start.
So yeah, when we had our daughter, who was 1 year and a half, we potty trained her, and to keep her longer on the potty, we didn't find any good children's books, but she did like to look at the AMA magazine, so she liked the motorcycles in it, and she would point at it, and we would extend the sessions, right? But then on Amazon, we didn't find any motorcycle kids books who looked nice for little kids, like 1 or 2 years of age, and so we decided to just come up with our own book.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what? So do you guys ride? And how? Obviously you have AMA motorcycle magazines at home, so you must be into the motor culture. So how long have you guys been riding, and what got you into riding?
I'll take that one. So I started riding back in 2004. And I was a kid who desperately wanted to ride, but between baseball and guitar and my parents, it just never quite worked out. And then I, through some things in life, when I was about 34, 35, decided to start riding, which I did. And then Nancy and I started dating in 2011. So I started taking her riding with me, and that lasted as long as it lasted until Nancy decided that she wanted to start riding. So she went and got her license, and I think it was a XT 225 was her beginner bike, and then she graduated to a G650 BMW.
Wow.
And so that's where the whole thing with the motorcycle thing kind of crept into our lives. And so obviously Nancy became an AMA member, and that was nice about, as she said, we would get 2 copies of that magazine, and that extra copy would keep that little girl seated on the potty. And here we are today talking to you guys. So it all started with a kid with a magazine in a bathroom.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That is really cool. So I got into riding because of Chuck. He introduced me in as well. So that was really kind of cool to see the correlation between like the guys starting riding and then, you know, us not really wanting to be on the back of a bike and wanting to do our own thing and ride our own. So that's really awesome.
Around the same time frame too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, 2011, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. About the same time you started your journey.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
with me.
yes, with you.
with motorcycles, it was 2016, but with me, it was 2011.
Yeah.
Aw.
Isn't that cool?
You guys.
Yeah, that's
I
kinda
know we
cool.
saw that correlation. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So, what do you ride now? So you're on a BMW, Nancy, and Mark, what are you riding?
I'm currently on a 2000. Go ahead, Nancy.
I since sold my bike because my, when I had a baby, there was just other priorities. So yeah, I have to rebike definitely. So Mark, please go ahead.
I'm on a Ducati Hyperstrada 2014, and I've actually in the last year or two I've sent a lot of pictures to Nancy. You know, BMW makes that little 310. So in some of the work that I've done when I'm in a BMW dealership, I'll always sort of find that motorcycle and take a little picture and send it to her. So yeah, we're eagerly awaiting Nancy to get to rebike and get back out there with us. In the meantime, she either goes 2-up with me, or actually more often than not, my daughter now comes with me a little bit. So
Yeah.
so that's where we're at the moment. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that because obviously your books are made for children, and there's a pretty popular Instagram right now, a guy by the name of Moto Photo Dad, and his daughter Hazel.
Yeah, Raymond.
Yeah, how old is Hazel?
She is 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and she is obsessed with motorcycles. Like she's always on his bike riding with him. It's really neat. Have you guys seen them at all? I'm just curious.
I think is that the guy that's putting the little girl sort of in front of him on the bike?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. She looks to be about in that kind of 3-ish range. So yeah, I have seen some of those posts. And listen, you know, it's you have a dad who loves his kid, and there's a motorcycle there, and he's got her out riding. You know, I think the popularity of that sort of speaks to, you know, a lot of the things that Nancy and I are trying to work on and get people to be a little more aware of with regards to getting kids excited about motorcycles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people have that story of when did you start riding? What's your first experience with a motorcycle? And with me, it was my Uncle Earl. Everyone called him Stretch. Fun fact about me is that when I was growing up, my parents had a lot of kids, and you couldn't just leave us at home because we would destroy everything. So they would take us everywhere they went. So they would always take us literally to the bar. There was like this open air market where half of it was like a produce thing. The other part of it was a bar, right? Literally a bar. Everybody just sitting there drinking, and there were like video games in the back. But my point is we were there, and my Uncle Earl would ride up on his Harley and stick me on the back of it every now and then, just run me around the corner, you know? And that stuck with me my entire life. And until I got to the point where I started building dirt bikes. So yeah, I think a lot of us get our start with our love for motorcycles with an uncle or someone sticking us on a bike like that. So
yeah.
So, man, you know, I would probably actually to kind of take that one step farther. I mean, we've been out doing events now since 2017, and you know, we've spoken to a lot of people from our booth. I would offer to you that I think it would be a great study for somebody to do, but in our opinion, I think the vast majority of adults who ride motorcycles, if you ask them that same question that you're talking about, they're going to tell you most often about a childhood experience or memory. They rode, they had friends who rode, they had an uncle, their dad, or something like that. And if we're correct in that assessment, and I would offer to, I think that number, I think it's 80 or 90% of adults who ride can trace that inspiration back to something in their childhood. If if we're even remotely correct about that assumption, it tells you everything you need to know about getting more people interested in riding motorcycles. It really has to start very early, and that's really what, on top of being inspired by our daughter and that part of it, the other part was I think Nancy and I were also very cognizant from a business standpoint that even back in late 2015, as we started to kick the idea around, the motorcycle industry for a long time has not been happy about the amount of new riders that are coming into the sport, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
adults who decide to scratch that itch or getting kids excited about it. I was actually passing along an article to some guys that we're working with, and in that article, it made a point. I think this is MI Motorcycle Industry Council data. In 1980, the average age of a U.S. motorcycle rider was 27. By 2018, it was 50. And in any industry, you would call that a crisis. If your consumer base is aging out, and if that average age goes up every year, eventually there is a cliff at the end of that aging process, and that's when people pass away.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that for the motorcycle industry, I mean, there are pockets where they're doing great things, and we don't knock that. But as an industry, not enough has been done. That's all. I don't think Nancy and I are sitting here saying that Mimi and Moto is the solution, but we're certainly trying to be part of the solution. And what we're doing now seems incredibly relevant because of that fact. The average age was still 27. I don't think anybody would really care too much about what we're doing because they have a young consumer base.
So true.
You're doing something right. But because the opposite is true, I think what Nancy and I are doing with Mimi and Moto over the last few years seems more relevant. And that we never would have done this just because we're parents and we're inspired by our daughter. There was very much a business idea here that can we carve out a space
Mm-hmm.
trying to get more kids excited about motorcycles. I mean, the books are the foundation of our brand, but they're not why we do it. Why we do what we do is to get more kids excited about motorcycles, and it's through books, it's through merchandise, it's through wanting to animate the series and wanting to expand internationally. So, like I said, and especially I guess coming off of 3 days of chatting nonstop with people at the Barber Vintage Festival, I repeated a lot of that information to a lot of the people that we talked to because I think when people come and buy some of our stuff, we appreciate it and we want them to really understand what we're trying to do. And so yeah, there's things, there's a lot of work to be done, but we're excited about the opportunity to do what we're doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I was thinking about this earlier. When was the last great motorcycle movie?
Well, it's coming out. It's called
Bike Riders is coming out. We're going to find out whether or not that's a great movie. It looks like it's good. It's got a lot of great people involved in it, and I really wish though.
Yeah, it's not really centered towards like the general public. It's based on like a motorcycle
club. It's like MC stuff,
yeah.
Which again, I have nothing against that. But
Correct.
A lot of the movies that are featuring motorcycles, even all the way back to Easy Rider, kind of focus on a very specific aspect of it versus the modding them and racing them and going out and the adventures. I mean, there's a few, but nothing that's been super mainstream or popular.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last really good motorcycle movie?
Not motorcycle. I don't remember anything that's motorcycle centric. But a lot of like action movies have motorcycles in them, and like The Matrix.
Right. And that's actually a good point. So every time you see motorcycles being used in movies these days, they're always being used by these superheroes, Black Widow or The Rock or whoever. It's always this super overdone thing versus really talking about the love of a machine. The Fastest Indian might be the last true great motorcycle movie that I ever saw. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's got Anthony Hopkins in it. It's about the fastest whenever they broke the speed record in the Indian motorcycle. I love movies like that, and we don't have anything out there other than the popcorn candy flashy. Oh, look at that live wire that the Black Widow is riding. Oh,
true.
look at this crazy thing. He jumps up in the air and flips the bike with one hand and hits somebody with it and lands on it and rides away. Well, who's gonna emulate that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about there are plenty of movies out there where a person sees a car, falls in love with this car, rebuilds this car, races this car, does all that. Where's the motorcycle movie that talks about the love of the machine, the engine, and the riding, and then also continuing to build them out? I think those types of movies are the movies that inspire people. Field of Dreams came out. You know how many kids went out and signed up for baseball?
Right.
Right? I mean, after the Karate Kid came out, you know how many kids went out and signed up for karate?
Jeet Kune Do.
Right. So Jeet Kune Do. That's Bruce Lee.
I know.
All right. But my point is that I think you're right. An animated series, books about it, the C. Thomas Howell, not C. Thomas Howell. Why would I just say that? Who wrote the book on Hell's Angels? Why did I say C. Thomas Howell?
Maybe you're thinking of The Outsider.
Gonzo journalist.
The guy who did the Vegas.
Yeah, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Yeah. But I'm so embarrassed I can't think of his name. Please look it up for me, Sharon.
I got it.
That is embarrassing. He's one of my favorite journalists of all time.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter. That's why I said C. Thomas Howell. Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh my gosh, okay. I got it. That's how your brain works.
Yes. Okay.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
But I don't know if you've ever read that book he did, which does mix fiction with fact. That was kind of his deal, right? Mm-hmm. But it is a phenomenal book. That's what inspires kids to go, I want to go out there and build a dirt bike. That's one of the reasons why I was building them. But yeah, all right, sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there. Because he inspired, I think he's right. He's 100% right. We've got to start getting true motorcycle culture back into pop culture, not just look at these cool, flashy things. Let's talk about the experience of riding and building and all of that.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about that? I never thought about it in the perspective of the young, like the average age of a motorcycle rider, because I got into it at such an old, I was 30,
old as hell.
34. Stop. I was in my mid 30s when I got into riding. So
he's like laughing by himself over there.
I know. But so for me, like that was my experience. I mean, I had my first riding experience like on the back of a motorcycle when I was 18 years old. It was kind of random. A couple of girlfriends of me and my girlfriends were walking down our street. We lived in Utah, and we were just walking down the street, and this guy like rides by on a crotch rocket, and we're like, "Can we take a ride?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I like get on the back of his bike and like go for a ride, and then he brings me back, and I'm just like, that was the most thrilling thing ever. But that was it. Like that was the end of that experience until Chuck reintroduced me into it. So I never grew up around family members that rode, or I never had that within like my adolescence. I do feel that it's important for people to be exposed to motorcycle riding, especially as a rider who rides, with the general public on regular roads where people are just unaware of motorcycles at all. Like they don't even think about looking for you when you're in their pocket or when you're on the road. So just the awareness of it, not even if it becomes this huge cult thing that happens where everybody rides, but just the awareness of it is super important. So I think that having something when you're younger and like having a book like Mimi and Moto Adventures and things like that just is a super great avenue to have. Mm-hmm. And is really important.
Because everybody, okay, so I thought about what would be the most recent pop culture motorcycle centric thing? Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody puts out as this is motorcycle culture, yes. Right? Whereas I don't, I nothing against it if you do. Nothing against it, right? Do you? But I've never run meth. Right? None of my motorcycle experience involves methamphetamines, running drugs, running guns. None of that.
They're so silly.
Right? So
Yeah.
I can't identify with the show
Yeah.
at all. I tried to watch it. Okay, I got to get off my rant. All right.
So is Mimi your daughter's nickname or name? Where does that come from?
Nancy, you take this one.
So I want to say when Mia was not able to speak yet, she would just, maybe try to announce her name, which is Mia, but she couldn't say it. So she would just say Mimi to herself. So
How cute is that?
yeah. But then we later realized that a lot of grandmas are actually called Mimi. So that actually helped us out to sell more books sometimes. So when you talk to the grandparents, they get like the sweet feeling about, oh, I'm a Mimi. And then, they have this connection, even though maybe they're not entirely, on board with motorcycles, but they totally have a sweet spot for, I'm a Mimi, so I want to buy this book. So it definitely helped out there.
That's so cool. I love it. So you guys were just at Barber festival this past weekend, and tell us about that. We actually missed it. I was telling Chuck and Sharon, like, I'm mad that we missed this year because there were so many people there. There was so many great events. I saw all the social media surrounding the Barber Vintage Motorcycle Festival that went on this past weekend. So how was that?
Man, it was great. We were set up in the fan zone with in the BMW Motorrad footprint. They had a big presence there celebrating their 100-year anniversary. Mm-hmm. And we were right next to our friends Ryan McFarland, the founder of Strider Bikes and the founder of All Kids Bike. We've known Ryan for a long time, and they had reached out to Ryan about bringing an All Kids Bike setup riding area and including that in the BMW footprint. And then we were brought in as part of that. So we had a great spot right there in the front of the activation with a riding area for the kids, the All Kids Bike tent, and then our tent. And it worked out fantastic. The weather there was great, obviously. Barber has been very special to us. They started carrying our books in the museum gift shop back in 2017. Awesome. We did multiple events there in 2017 and 2018 with Moto America. And then in 2019, Moto America invited us to manage the kid zones at all the Moto America races. So suddenly we're at all of the races. Between 19 and 22, we were at all of those races. Unfortunately, COVID kind of killed the kid zone thing with Moto America for a few years, but really grateful to George Barber and the whole staff over there. They've been carrying it. We did in 17, we did a book signing there. In 19, I think we had a photo station set up right in front of the museum. Last year was in the fan zone. This year was in the fan zone. And Barber really, I think the Vintage Festival really stepped it up this year too. Kids, I think it was 16 and under got in for free with a paying adult. They see the same thing that we're sitting here screaming. You need to get your average age down. And if you're getting a lot of families and kids there, that means your average age is coming down. Weather was spectacular. Little light shower Thursday morning. So that's 2 years in a row where the weather there was sort of Chamber of Commerce kind of weather. Lots of people, we've been there enough now that we're starting to have that really cool experience of people coming up and saying, they've got the first two books. Oh, there's a new one out. So, and that's really for us, and even for the foreseeable future, we really are trying to build the Mimi and Moto brand in the same way that you would, the same way a band would work. I come from the music world and done the musician thing, and what do bands do? They try to write a record, go out and play some more shows. Write another record, go play more shows. Hopefully, play bigger shows. And I think really what we're trying to do with the brand is really try to build connections with our fans. And when you're sitting there talking to people all day long, and they're giving you their hard-earned money to take some of your stuff back home to their children, it's as special this weekend as it was when we sold our first Bet book at the end of 2016. So we had a great time there, hanging out. Again, the affiliation that Mimi and Moto has with the All Kids Bike and Strider brands is huge for us. Certainly, I think for Nancy and I validates what we're doing, and that Ryan is willing to sort of bring us along and have us be a part of what he's trying to do with All Kids Bike. For anybody listening or watching this that is not familiar with All Kids Bike, please go to the website. We're going to plug their website before we plug ours. It's allkidsbike.org. And what the program does is they are taking a modified Strider bike and putting it into kindergarten classes. Ryan comes from a motorcycle family, and he told us back in 2017 when we met him, and we've repeated this line many times, bicycles are the gateway to motorcycles. You can't ride a bicycle, you're not going to get on a motorcycle. Right. And what they're trying to do with the program, they've funded 1,000 schools already. They put 24 of these Strider bikes. You can't buy this kind of Strider bike. It's a convertible kit. So it starts as a balance bike, and once the class gets used to using it as a balance bike, they can put the pedals on there and start to pedal away. So for us to have been at the Barber Vintage Festival, I mean, we're in our booth pedaling and selling all of our stuff, and Ryan McFarland's right next to us talking to people and kids about that kind of stuff. So we are very excited going forward. We had a nice write-up. We did a similar activation at the Vintage Motorcycle Days in Ohio over the summer, and actually in the issue that just came out, they had a really nice one-page article about All Kids Bike and Mimi and Moto. So we're really excited about what they're doing. We're excited to be a part of it and trying to help them grow that. And the goals with Mimi and Moto are the same as with All Kids Bike. So it's a really very natural sort of partnering of the two brands. So yeah, we had a great time out there, sold a bunch and met a lot of people. So we got to already looking forward to 24.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm curious about something. When you were bringing up bicycles and motorcycles and the declining rate of people entering into the motorcycle community, I'm curious about something as for society as a whole. I'm curious as to the decline in bicycle sales over the last 10 to 12 years, specifically because of how little kids get outside these days.
That's true.
I haven't even, whenever he was talking about getting bicycles in front of kids, I haven't even thought about the fact that I bet a lot of kids are not having that life experience. Like when I was growing up, everyone had a bicycle.
Yeah.
Everyone got, even if you had to build it yourself from parts in the dump, you had a bicycle of some sort. I'm very curious about that. And then I think, another thing that exasperates this issue is all sectors, all industries, especially ones that involve a little bit of risk, have experienced a decline in people entering into that particular whatever. The military is having a hard time recruiting. Football is not getting as many people going into it as it used to be. And I think because if you look at our overall society, we've talked about this within the employment world.
Yeah.
We've been under the replacement rate in this country for over 50 years, meaning we're not producing as many people as aging out of the workforce. Right. I wonder if that's also having an effect on just in general, we're not producing enough people to support the industries at the same level that they used to exist.
Yeah. Honestly, when Mark brought that up, that's the same thought process that I had because of like different types of skilled labor, like how skilled labor is declining and we don't have enough plumbers, electricians, welders, people that actually operate with their hands going into the workforce. And there's a huge need for that type of skill because people that have done that in the past are now aging out, they're retiring or that, so that is crazy how those two things kind of.
I think there's a correlation there, which is even more important for us to start getting in front of them. Right? Because so many people are going to be vying for their attention because there's just not enough coming up.
Yeah. What, so you guys, is this something that you do as a full-time job? Is that something that you all are kind of just committed to, or do you have full-time jobs on the side?
Nancy?
Yeah,
Nancy has a side hustle. What's your side hustle?
I have a small side hustle as a scientist at the CDC. So full disclosure.
I just do this little thing where I work at the CDC. I got this little small job. I'm an astronaut. I don't do much with my life or anything like that. I'm just a Nobel Prize winning mathematician. I have a small side hustle. I'm a scientist at the CDC.
Stop. Nancy, you'll have to forgive me.
You're
my
so
husband.
humble.
I'm sorry.
No biggie. No biggie. What'd you do today, Chuck? Oh, I staffed some jobs. What'd you do today? I stopped a disease from killing everyone. No big
That's
deal.
an overarching goal. Yeah. Yeah. Trying.
No biggie. Just a Monday.
Awesome. That's really cool. How long have you been doing that, Nancy?
Yeah, so that's actually my first job in the US when I came over in 2011. I was hired by the CDC to work on, avian flu, and then I shifted over to poliovirus, which, is maybe not a big deal here in the States, but it's definitely a big deal elsewhere. Still, a lot of children are paralyzed by it. So, so we are making a lot of efforts to eradicate that disease. So I'm trying to work myself out of that job since I started in 2016 in that particular area. So yeah, we haven't finished. So yeah, we're trying to go to the finish line, but
Yeah.
it's very hard to eradicate a disease. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Well, that's freaking awesome. We know a scientist. who does.
I know.
Puts it into perspective.
It does.
My job is hard. Not
Well, I mean,
really.
I think that it all plays a part, I mean, we're putting people to work on a regular basis, trying to
It's true.
keep these companies going.
And we put scientists to work sometimes.
We do.
That is
so
true.
it's all,
Yeah, I helped.
it
I
all
helped.
comes around full
helped.
circle.
I help.
So how old is Mia now?
Mia's 9 years old.
9. So does she ride? Gotta ask.
Yeah, it was Mark. She wasn't interested yet to learn how to actually ride a motorcycle. So for a while, she was using our Stasic, which is a how do you call it? An electric kind of bike. So she used to, in the pandemic, there was a complete shutdown of everything, obviously. So she also was at home a lot. So we had those Stasic bikes at the house, and Mark would do a parkour around our house. So she would just go in circles to, do something, and they would go in the neighborhood. So that was kind of fun. But that's all. Since then, she's riding a bike, and then she's riding with Mark on his Ducati. So
That's fun.
Do they still make those little small motorized
Yes.
motorcycles for kids that have the training wheels on?
They do. Yeah. I was actually, there's this girl I follow on Instagram, and I can't remember her name, but I think she's like around 11 or 12. And she, along with her dad, has built mini motorcycles to like enter into shows and things like that. So she's like around all of these adults entering their bikes into bike shows, and she's doing the same thing. And it's so amazing. Like, because I didn't grow up around the moto community, and that's not something that, I was a part of, it blows my mind to see someone so young that, has the aspirations to like be a great motorcycle builder. And that's what she wants to do. And she's actually doing this because she wants to do it, not because her parents have forced this on her, and her taking that by the reins and really winning some bike shows. That's freaking amazing.
I think girls are taking over. Like, ladies are like a super force to be reckoned with in the motorcycle community right now.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, some of the best bikes I see, like Lowe's bike was it's a female ridden bike. Your
Yeah.
bike's a female ridden bike. There's a lot of females really riding nice bikes these days, and that kind of stuff is so inspiring. Like hearing,
I know.
What most 12-year-old girls are doing. What
I know. I
Not
gotta look up
building
her name. 'Cause I
not
gotta
building motorcycles.
Actually started to do
I gotta give her props.
Oh, okay.
Because she's amazing. But yeah, I think that, whereas there's not the drive to like build bikes specific to any specific gender or anything like that, I honestly feel like that's not necessary. When it comes to motorcycle riding, it's you learn a bike, you get on a bike and you learn how to ride that bike and go for it. Like, just like with a car, right? With a race car, with any kind of motorsport, there's it's not necessarily built to a specific gender. So I'm kind of like, go for it no matter what gender you are. And if you're good at it, you're good at it, right? And if you're not, then it's probably not for you.
It sounds like you got something on your mind about that.
I mean, no, I'm just saying, like.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, I agree. They don't make motorcycles for short guys, right? They don't make motorcycles. They make a motorcycle and then you
modify it,
right? You modify it, or you find one that fits you, or whatever. You don't necessarily you don't build a car specifically for. There are cars that certain types of people prefer, right? But that doesn't mean the car was specifically built for that particular type of person. I don't agree with the whole building motorcycles for a specific. I think you build the motorcycle and then what it attracts, it attracts.
Yeah. And then you can modify it. Like, I know probably around maybe 60% of the people that I know who have motorcycles have modified it to be what they want it to be. Whether it be paint, changing out the bars, changing out the grips, the shocks,
What does that even mean? Like, if you were to say, build a bike catered to female riders, what would that be? Like, for real? Like,
I know.
What would that be?
I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. Smaller and lighter. Smaller and lighter. When Nancy was on that G650, it was still a big bike.
Right.
Still a big bike. I could get on that bike. I'm 6'1" and 190, and I could ride that bike comfortably. The example that I used earlier about that BMW and that 310, I do think you've seen the manufacturers realize that what is most intimidating to female riders, what's most intimidating to new riders is the weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would weight. And if you can, and I think BMW dropping a 310cc bike that you could buy for about $5,000 in light of the huge machines that they have, I think certainly speaks to that demographic. And you can actually even go back to the mid 70s. One of the reasons why Honda did this huge thing in the mid 70s, because Harley Davidson had stepped in with their lobbying efforts and had somehow gotten legislation passed. So there was above a certain cc, the foreign manufacturers could not bring these bikes in. So what Honda did, which was brilliant, is they started dropping 500cc bikes, and in their advertising, I think the line was, you meet the nicest people riding a Honda.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And they would have women in these ads. So I do think that there has been a more of an awareness over the last 5 years or so, especially it's not about making a bike for a woman, because we all have two legs. You kick it over and you hit the throttle and you go. But I do think that weight also, and noise. And I did this was probably 2017, 2018 at the Walker School in Marietta. Sorry about that. Moved the phone. I did we call a book reading motorcycle sitting.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in, I read to a bunch of classes, and then all of a sudden we took them all outside. I had the it was the Ducati. I had that parked up front, and on the stairs, I got to tell you, there was probably at least 50 kids there. I said, all right, guys, I'm going to start it up. And before I even hit the key, man, I saw half of those kids, and this is I understand the allure of the sound. I know I'm not sure where I stand on loud pipe saves lives. However, I will tell you that at least half of those kids put their fingers to their ears. Half of them.
Oh, yeah.
Which meant that they were afraid. And if you want to get kids interested in something, about the last thing you need is for them to be afraid of something. And when I saw them do that, before I started up the bike, I stopped them all. And I made a real specific point. I said, I want everybody here to understand all motorcycles. In fact, you want to know something? Most motorcycles aren't loud. So there are things that we all should be aware of. Children get afraid. They hear thunder and they're peeing in their pants. Mm-hmm. And when you have a motorcycle that sounds like thunder, you're going to intimidate some kids. So I think all riders should be cognizant of that, especially around children, because we all know this. You have the wrong experience at the wrong time in your life. It might sour you for the rest of your life about it. So I think that's something that people should be aware of. My Ducati purrs like a little cat, and it's beautiful.
What kind of kid you around? I don't know what school you at. I'm just kidding.
School in Marietta.
I'm just teasing.
I understand that.
I do think that sometimes kids are afraid, but I've also seen plenty of kids get really excited when they hear that brop a little bit, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I totally understand the whole thing about weight and sound. And I think it's all about personal preference. But I also understand how, and I've seen a lot of women who, start out on a small, dainty bike that's 250 cc's, 500 cc's, and immediately within 3 months, they're on a monster of a bike. And it's all due to like experience and then confidence getting on that heavier bike and riding it. And I'm not judging. Like, if you want to ride a smaller bike, if you want to ride a bike that doesn't have a loud exhaust and all of that, that's, like I said, personal preference. And I think that there are a lot of different manufacturers that offer a wide variety of choices. And it's not just the Harley, it's not just the Indian, it's not just the, Ducati. There are a ton of different bikes that are out there that you can experience and have a great time with. So I think the more that we kind of put out the different types of bikes that you can ride, the variety, and we introduce that to the public, I think that that's going to make a difference with the perspective and people understanding that it's not just one size fits all.
Let me see if I can make a point that is counterproductive anyways.
As you usually do.
I think it's counterproductive. So right now, within the motorcycle community, let's just take Harley. We'll just use Harley because it's probably the easiest example I can think of. Within the Harley community, what would be considered a woman's bike? Right now.
Sportster.
A Sportster. What else?
Softail.
Lowrider, maybe?
Softail, lowrider.
Yeah.
I think although those are on the line sometimes, I think a lot of dudes ride them. Okay. So if Harley Davidson said, I'm going to manufacture a bike specifically targeted at the female rider, how do you think that bike would be perceived within the community?
Less powerful somehow.
Oh, it's a woman's bike. What do people say about any time a dude's on a Sportster? Oh, is that your wife's bike? I mean, I'm telling you, if you make a bike specifically designed for women, I think within the community, they're going to see it the same way. They're not going to embrace it. And I think that the ladies that are riding baggers, the ladies that are riding, bigger bikes that have adapted the bike to themselves are not going to look at that bike as a viable option. I don't think most women will look at it and go, yes, the whole thing is I can do anything, right? So I don't think that if you cater to it, they're going to be like, oh, I can take a lesser version of the motorcycle.
Yeah, I get that. But I also feel like, times change and things evolve, and maybe making things that are more customizable and relatable to the current culture and the current demographic would be good. I do understand that as well. Mm-hmm. Because, you want the latest and greatest, right? You're not going to want... There's some people that love the antiques and the old school, the culture. But there are also people who want the newest and the best. So there are people that have the latest iPhone 15, immediately when it releases. And then there are people who have the iPhone 12, mm-hmm. So I feel like as technology evolves and as designs and things like that evolve, I think that, we need to be cognizant of the different weights and the different styles of riding and all of that.
I think that but I think it's counter, right? I think it's counter to kind of what, well, all right, I'll get off of it. We can talk about this ad nauseum, I'm sure, but
what is something that you guys want? Obviously, you want to promote riding as a youth, like when you're younger, understanding all of that. What are some of the things that you all are doing in the community? Like when you go to Walker, like what are the events that you put on and some of the educational things that you do to help children understand about motorcycles?
Nancy, you want to go on this one? I mean, there's probably, for us, every year on this journey has been very different. So what we're constantly trying to do is simply take advantage of the opportunities that are afforded us and go forward, understanding that we're on a mission. We're self-published. We've never chased a publisher on our own. We've sold almost 14,000 books, which it's great, and we appreciate all the compliments we get about that. But I think Nancy and I feel like we're at the very beginning of this journey. We want to sell 140,000 books. We'd like to sell 1.4 million. We'd like to do something with Mimi and Moto on a national scale and also on an international scale that starts to move the needle a bit, that really starts to have an impact on the industry. So we look at every opportunity as a chance to get out there. We got recently, we're talking to a bookstore here in Avondale Estates. They wanted us to come in and do a book event. Next thing you know, where I'm chatting about, well, why don't we invite a bunch of motorcycle people to show up at this? And you show up and you stand next to your bike. If there's a kid there that wants to sit on your bike, you let them sit on your bike. And then that turned into the bookstore is also affiliated with a lot of a bit of the bike riding community in the area. So they want to we want to make it kind of this two-wheel event. For us, it's really just trying to be out there as much as possible, whether it's going to a Barber Vintage Festival, whether it's doing a book event like that at a bookstore. We're always sort of on the hunt for getting out there and finding those opportunities. And we do want, I think from a long-term perspective, we want Mimi and Moto to also be an ambassador for motorcycling to non-motorcycle families and people who are not exposed to it. If we can get to the point where we are fortunate enough to turn Mimi and Moto into a series or a movie, then you start to get into a whole different category for the brand, because now you're reaching well beyond the motorcycle community. What we've done so far is really only within the motorcycle community, but that was never the goal at the very beginning. The goal was much larger from the standpoint, when as we move forward, we want the Mimi and Moto brand to be up there with Arai and Shoei and Dionysi and everybody else. In order to do that, though, we're in a position now. The key for us is to scale.
Yeah.
How do we know it'll sell. I mean, if we're around motorcycle people, it's going to sell. And then it's just a function of how many people are there. This weekend, for example, I know some people over at Royal Enfield. Royal Enfield is a really cool company from the standpoint they are trying to look forward with regards to they have the Build, Train, Race program for the women in Moto America. They've got a Build program where they're bringing bikes into high schools where young people are able to work on those bikes. I made the introduction. So along with, I introduced Ryan McFarland to the Royal Enfield people because he's looking for funding for the All Kids Bike program. Mm-hmm. And then I'm also talking with Royal Enfield saying, we want to talk to you guys about India.
Yeah.
India is a very English speaking country. It would be really cool to work with somebody at Royal Enfield, maybe not necessarily with them, but I'm going to pick, as soon as we can, I'm going to pick their brain about how can we need to find a licensing partner in India who would want to have Mimi and Moto in India. So, right. Our goals are huge. There's no reason for us to be thinking small. We never have thought small. But again, I think if you look at it, the band analogy that we like to use, by the time you hear about a band, they've probably been a band for 10 years. Mm-hmm. You have to put in the work. Ryan McFarland was telling us at the beginning of the Strider days, they had a network of people selling Striders out of their homes.
Yeah.
They don't need to do that anymore. They've sold 4 million bikes, but that I think is inspirational for us. And we joked with Ryan all weekend long. It's like, watch out, man, we're coming. Like we want to sell 4 million books too. But in order to do that, it's going to require that we find like-minded people who see the value and the vision of what we're trying to do. It's imperative for the entire motorcycle industry, from riders at the individual level, for companies, for everybody involved to do their part. There is no one solution to pushing the average age of motorcycle riders down in the United States. And Mimi and Moto is not necessarily the solution to that, but it can be part of that solution. It's why when you watch a World Cup soccer game, there is a reason why the teams walk out into the field escorted by a child. Each player is holding the hands of a child.
Yeah.
Very specific. It's because the optics for the kids watching that are, how can I be that kid?
Mm-hmm.
What does it take for me to walk on the field with that player? Motorcycling it's no different. But I don't think cumulatively the industry, clearly the numbers, it's not my opinion. I mean, if you have a consumer base who is aging, you have a problem, and you have to address the problem in a variety of different ways. And we're trying to do that. And I think we're really optimistic about what we can do, because it's in everybody's interest. For example, between Mimi and Moto and All Kids Bike thing, the more books we can sell, the more things we can do, the more we can animate and do all the things we want to do, it's better for the industry. Same way with Ryan McFarland and All Kids Bike. The more schools they can put that program into, it's better for the industry, because you're not going to get motorcycle riders if you don't have bicycle riders. And that's really what I think we always tell people too. We want to be considered a resource. If there's something that somebody's doing that involves families or children,
Mm-hmm.
and we can help in any way, please call us. We are willing to go where we need to go, do what we need to do, because we believe so passionately in what we're trying to do. And again, we're thrilled at what we've done, but I know there's a lot more than 14,000 motorcycle riders in the United States. There's millions. So those are the kinds of numbers that we're trying to get to. And even chatting with everybody here tonight, we so appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience and get them sort of thinking about this, and whatever that means, whether it means coming to our website and buying some stuff, whether it means letting that kid sitting on your motorcycle that's looking at it. I think, Chuck, you said it earlier, everybody who rides pulls up to a car. If there's a bunch of kids in the car, they're all faces against the window looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
Selling motorcycling and promoting motorcycling to kids is like shooting ducks in a pond. But you know what you got to do? You got to shoot. You actually have to do something instead of just looking at the ducks in the pond.
Yeah.
And I'm not. I don't think Nancy and I are. Like I said, we're just aware of what we hear. I've gone to enough rallies. I go to you go to these things and people are like, oh man, 10, 15, 20 years ago was so good. Yeah, I'm quite well aware when you go to a rally. I always laugh about that, because it's not what anybody thinks. It's a bunch of grandfathers. That's the reality. That's what it is. And we just want, and it shouldn't be that way, and it doesn't need to be that way. And we're gonna go down fighting and doing everything we can to get more kids excited about motorcycles going forward. So we're excited about the future.
Well, guys, the books are great. I actually listened to 2 of them today. I listened to the ABC one, which was really cool. I think you've got a great product. I think you got a great mission. I think that you're doing all the right things. Obviously, the way you're approaching it like a band, we all know what it is: consistency, passion, relationships, getting out there and staying after it. So, and I think that the mission you're on is a good one. Like I said, I mean, we need to get younger riders more interested in riding. So we truly appreciate you guys getting out there and doing it and making it happen. And thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah.
Before we end this out, all your social media, website, how can everybody get in touch with both you guys? Although Nancy's kind of busy protecting the world.
The website's real simple. It's mimiandmoto.com. And all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram is at Mimi and Moto. And we appreciate the time, and we would love if anybody watching or listening to this, please come to our website, get some stuff. Christmas is coming, and we would appreciate everybody's support, helping us get more kids excited about motorcycles.
Absolutely. And we'll put a link within the description after the episode airs and renders and all that. I'll put all that down. So look in the description for links if you're watching this in the future.
Absolutely.
Z, you want to, okay. But real quick, thank you guys so much. Truly appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you. We got to ride sometime, by the way. That's one of the rules. You guys don't live that far, so we got to go ride. All right. Z?
Yeah. So make sure you like and subscribe. Chuck and Z on YouTube, Chuck and Z on Instagram, and Miss Sharon Klein.
Miss Sharon Klein, producer chaos over here.
Thanks for such a great show, you guys.
Yeah, it was great.
That was fun. Thanks
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
Shiny side up.
Bye. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.